Welcome to the Agent of Wealth podcast with Marc Bautis from Bautis Financial. In this podcast, Marc helps guide you towards financial freedom, ensure you never run out of money, and create a balance in life that prioritizes what is most important to you. Join us for this journey as Marc draws from years of expertise and guest experts to solve the multiple wealth building challenges involved in your financial life.
Welcome back to the Agent of Wealth. This is your host, Marc Bautis. Today, I'm joined by a special guest, Sherri Matheney, to discuss a topic that often gets overlooked in financial planning, but can have a major impact on a business owner's bottom line, health insurance. More specifically, we're diving into how the right health insurance strategy can reduce financial risk, common pitfalls small businesses face when the coverage, and what business owners need to know as they grow and scale. Sherri is an award-winning insurance agent known for her real talk, humor, and heart. Dubbed the healthcare hero, she specializes in helping small business owners get private health coverage that actually makes sense. Licensed in 34 states, Sherri brings clarity, compassion, and a little sass to an industry most people dread. Today, she's here to help us demystify the health insurance maze. Sherri, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's start off with the big picture. Why is health insurance such a critical piece of a business owner's financial strategy?
Yeah, so health insurance is great to minimize, stop losses on income and protect your finances in case something happens to you. And it's also great for retention for employees. So, a lot of employees will only go to an employer if they offer health coverage. So I offer fun, creative ways to do that for them.
So you talk a lot about using health insurance as a tool to reduce financial risk. Maybe can you share a scenario where the right strategy made a big difference for a client?
Yeah, of course. So, I had a client that was in the hospital with diverticulitis for 2 weeks, and she had $100,000 plus bill, and she was only $3,000 out of her own pocket with the plan I put her on. So had she had to spend $100,000, that's a huge chunk. Yeah.
And on the flip side, what are some of the costly mistakes that you see small business owners make when choosing health insurance plans?
Yeah, I think it's important to vet the plan that you're getting, but also pay attention to the agent that you're talking to, because some people, just recommend a plan without even talking to the person and seeing if it works for them. And there's so many discount plans and just really bad insurance plans out there. And a lot of people don't do their research enough. And I think before you commit, you should really research the plan that you're getting and make sure it's legitimate.
I think the whole process can be overwhelming sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
For small business owners maybe can you walk us through the process? So a business owner comes to you and says, I'm looking to get, they don't have, let's say they're brand new. They don't have health insurance. They're not currently offering a health insurance plan for their company. They come to you and say, I want to start offering health insurance. Where do you go? What's the next step? Where do you go from there?
So I tell them to send me everyone's zip codes, dates of birth, gender. I really start with some quotes. It depends on the size. Mainly if you're a brand new business, I'm going to do them individually as opposed to like a group plan, because it's much, much more affordable that way. And then as they scale, they can graduate to like the bigger, more group policies. But I start out with everyone's zip codes, dates of birth, what's the, health of everybody, because I might suggest different plans based on how healthy people are. And I just start off with some quotes, and then I go through and I always, always, always do a screen share with people. So you're seeing what I'm looking at, and I explain just the different plans available and kind of gauge what would work best for that business.
And when you say you do it, you put them or get them started with an individual plan versus a group. You mean you're underwriting every person individually and they each get their own separate plan? At what number or what employee number does it make sense to switch over to a group, or is there a number that makes sense?
Yeah. So if you have more than 52 employees by federal law, you are required to carry traditional group. I pretty much will go 30 and under, because once I go over 30, well, the chances of you hitting the 52, it's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
And so then you're just going to have to switch sooner than later. So it's better 30 and under. And then, I communicate with my business owners a lot. So if anything changes or you're hiring 10 people or you fire 10 people, you should tell me because I might suggest we go a different route, right?
And how in those individual plans, how does the employer work with it? Are they working with one carrier, or could they be individual plans from all these different carriers, and then the employer is kind of managing that relationship between?
Yeah, so it could be separate companies. It really depends on the demographic that I'm talking to. But I manage all of that for them. The only thing the business owner, I tell them what the people are getting, but they can pay for it via payroll like they would a traditional group plan. They can write a fringe benefit, meaning they pay their employees a stipend. Um, the only thing the business owner really knows is what the premium or needs, that's important for them is what the premium is and how are they paying for it. And then I do everything else for them.
Mhm. And as far as the premium and what they're paying for it, does the employer have a choice? Can they say, okay, I want to cover this percentage, or I'm going to cover 100%, or and is there any minimum that they have to cover when offering a plan, or they can it's flexible enough where they can
Mhm.
devise a plan to however suits their needs or what they're looking to do.
Exactly. I helped a small business in Texas. It was actually a group of 30, and they were paying $800 a person to be on traditional group, and I saved them about $6,000 a month by doing it individually, because their demographic was very young. And
Hmm.
so, I got them for 200 a person, right? And so
Hmm.
they saved a bunch of money. Now, as they grow, they might end up switching back over to traditional group, but it really works for them right now. And anytime an employee has a problem, they just call me directly.
Yeah, I can see that's helpful.
Hmm.
Do they to do that analysis between individual versus group? And I know you said up front you're asking for some different information, demographic
Hmm.
information about each of the employees. Are you doing that analysis to help determine, okay, individual makes sense in this case, or maybe the next company that comes along, a group would have been cheaper to do because maybe they're all older employees and maybe but how and is it quantifiable? So you can say, okay,
Yeah.
if you went with individual coverage, here's what it looks like. If you went with group, here's what it looks like. Here, make your
Mhm.
decision.
Yep. And because I don't do traditional group personally, I have partners that I bring in and I will have my partners quote them traditional group. So we can literally put it side by side and say, all right, if you did, traditional group, this is what you're looking at. If you're doing
Mhm.
individual, this is what you're looking at. And my goal is sometimes they end up going traditional group and they don't use me, which is fine, but I did what's best for the business owner at that time, which still is great, right? Because then they still
Mhm.
refer me people and stuff like that. So sometimes when I compare, it could go positive for me or bad for me, but it's good for them always.
And I think there's a lot of misconception around health insurance for businesses and even business owners when it's very small, when it maybe is just a business owner, maybe just the business owner and one employee. What options do they have? And are when you help someone get coverage, are you going directly to the insurance company, or because a lot of times business owners think, okay, I have to go to my state exchange to get coverage. What are some of the options that they have?
So that's a great question. If you're a new business owner and you're just starting out, right? Your taxable income's probably pretty low. So your first year or two in business, going on the exchange, I'll help you do that. It might be most beneficial for you. But I do say be very careful because if you end up making way more money than you tell me, you need to tell me that as the year goes on and don't wait because it could hit you in a bad way. So I really ask a lot of questions. What medications are you taking? How much income do you project to have? And then as my business owners grow, I grow with them, right? So then, now you don't qualify for marketplace. So now if you're relatively healthy, there's really great private plans. And I might transition you over to a private plan at that point. So it depends on the stage of business you're in and where you're going and communication is huge. I'm like your girlfriend, right?
Mhm.
You gotta communicate with me.
And how often? Because I think a lot of times you hear, health insurance plans change, and most of the time you just hear that their premiums are going up. But are there other things that change within a health insurance plan that someone should be interested in looking at and seeing if their coverage still meets their needs or if there are other options out there? I know obviously premiums are going to go up over time, but what else should people look at when they're evaluating a plan?
Yeah, so every open enrollment, companies leave, the not so great ones don't make it, right? And then new companies come in. So it's always good to check that out and make sure that there isn't something bigger and better out there. And then private plans, you really have to be careful with private plans. So I see people's plans all the time, and you just really have to make sure that it has a max out of pocket. Because if you don't have a max out of pocket, you're not going to help yourself. And most people don't even know what that is. That's just your stop loss, right? And my biggest advice is do research or send it to me. I have people send me their plans all the time, whether I help them or not, just so I can say, all right, this is what you have, right?
Now, the max out of pocket is, so let's say that example you gave earlier, where someone was in the hospital, they had $100,000 bill, but out of pocket, they had to pay a lot less. I think it was around 3,000.
Yeah.
That max out of pocket, that's the maximum that the plan holder would pay, no matter what type of. Is there ever a maximum amount of coverage? So if the 100,000 was 2 million, would the insurance company still cover that, or is there a break point where they say, okay, there was a max out of pocket, but you blew past that, and now you're on the hook or we're not covering over a certain amount?
That's a great question because that's how a lot of the discount plans work. The plan that I put her on, there was no cap. She could have had a $5 million bill and they would have covered it after her 3 grand. And she actually had other things on there like hospital coverage, so she wasn't even out of pocket the 3 grand herself. That was
Oh,
just her
right,
policy max. And
right.
she actually got reimbursed like over that. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
I think another, I don't want to say trend, but topic that comes up a lot is whether someone should go with a high deductible healthcare plan along with an HSA and versus maybe a traditional like PPO plan. How should someone, and it seems like employers are pushing those more frequently now. How should someone evaluate whether, okay, I should switch over or I should stay with, and when they're doing that comparison between the high deductible or the traditional type of plan?
Yeah, that's a great question. And a lot of my healthy people will say that. They say, I'm healthy, I don't need it. My question to you is, if something happens to you, do you have 10 grand sitting in the bank? Are you okay paying that? Um, do you want to start an HSA and then get an HSA plan because you're literally just going to pay for everything that you do? Where the HSAs come in handy is if your employer contributes to the HSA
Hmm.
and then is matching you on it. Otherwise, you're just going to keep paying for everything you do. And then you
And
put your money in the bank.
that example where you said, do you have the 10 grand? Is that because the deductibles are higher?
Yeah, most of the
They're
time the
paying for
max.
more, or is it the premiums? Or
Yeah, yeah, sorry. Yep. The most of the max out of pockets for the HSA plans are 9,400.
okay,
So they have to have that money sitting in the bank or in their HSA account to cover it.
yeah.
Hmm.
How do you going back to what I was saying is how health insurance can be overwhelming. How do you educate or walk the business owner through what their options are and what the best and just it's something I challenge with too on the like financial planning side is right. You want to make sure they understand what their options are, the pros and cons of each option. How do you do it on your side with when you're helping a business owner out?
Yeah, so the first thing I do is ask what doctors you're seeing, what medications you're on, um, all of the questions, what's your price point, and then once I get that information, I'm narrowing down because there might be 150 plans, right? So once I narrow that down, I invite you to a screen share. So you're in my computer, you're staring at everything I'm staring at. And then I go through each line of the policy and I say, all right, well, this is your deductible. Do you know how that works? And then if they don't, I explain it to them. Here's your max out of pocket. Do you know how that, and I go down the line. This is your copay. This is what you're going to pay for labs, right? And I go through it and I make sure I educate more than I sell because
Mhm.
Oh, so many people come to me and don't know how their plans work or don't know what anything means. And so I
Yeah.
really, it's a great conversation because people leave my hour meeting feeling like they know about health insurance now, maybe just a little bit more, right? So it's a good
Yeah.
feeling for me too.
I know you're licensed in 34 states. How different is health insurance state to state? Are the laws radically different? Are the carriers, do they way they treat it differently, or is it similar between states?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it depends on whether it's private or marketplace. Some states have their own exchange now, and they don't participate in federal, which it's a whole different process to sign them up, and the plans are a little bit different. Some states do not like private plans, or they're very limited on the private plans that you can sell. Florida and Texas are my most expensive insurance states. So I help people with a lot of private plans in Florida and Texas because they're so much cheaper. States like Colorado, they're a little more expensive as well, and they have less options for people. So it really just depends on what the person's situation is to know what's available for them. Maryland's another state that's a little bit weird. They have very few options there as well.
When and going back to when you're helping the company get started,
Mhm,
and you collect all the demographic information on the employees, and you start looking at options.
mhm.
How who are you then? Are you at that point? Are you working with the employee, or are you still like when are you looking for each employee? Are you going through their specific options, which may be different than employee number two, and you're helping each employee with their specific,
Mhm.
options and getting their coverage? Is that how you do it?
Correct. But I first have to run everything through the business owner, right?
Mhm.
Because say I'm quoting everyone private and it's $350 a person, but that one person's unhealthy and maybe their premium's 600, right? So I
Mhm.
always communicate and make sure, hey, that's okay. Or at the beginning, I'll say I might have one or two that are a little bit more expensive. Is that okay with you? And they're usually saving so much, they're like, that's fine, no problem. But I always ask them 1st.
And what does the employer do in that, and usually in that situation? Like if someone was under a group plan, the premiums are probably level across everyone and they know what
Hmm.
they're covering. When they're different, the premiums are different between employee to employee. Is the employer or the owner usually coming and saying, okay, we'll cover a percentage, and I know employee A is more expensive because they're less healthy than the other employees? Or are they, I think you mentioned it earlier, that they might give a stipend and say, okay, I'm going to commit X amount per employee to coverage, and they can kind of use it however they want to use it.
Yep. So it works both ways. I have one company that where they cover 75% of the employee's premium, no matter what it is. And then I have, another company that covers $250 towards everyone's plan. And so what I do is I try to make that $250 go as far as possible for them.
Mhm.
Right. So that's very minimal out of the employee's pocket if I can. Again, it's subject to age, and things like that, how far I can make it go. Um, but yeah, yep. So it's all individual. And most of the time, if most of the employees aren't that healthy, or maybe they're a little bit older, I might suggest you just stay where you're at because it wouldn't be
Mhm.
that beneficial to switch either.
Right.
Mhm.
Now, I think you mentioned this earlier about networks and doctors. And I guess that's got to be a consideration. How does that process work? Someone will come to you and say, all right, these are the doctors I either see or I'm interested in seeing,
Mhm.
and you match up plans that would include those doctors.
Yeah, so, I use technology to put the doctor's name in there, but I've learned that's wrong most of the time. So I will have the employee or the person I'm talking to give me their doctors and I will call. And
Mhm.
I will say, do you take this plan in particular? Because I like to say, hey, I spoke to Mark and he said that you took this plan. And I want to have
Mhm.
record of that, right?
Right.
Yep.
And what about and people are working longer nowadays? How does the health insurance coverage coincide if they go on or on Medicare? Do they still get a plan? Do they get or like, I guess they still could be covered by a health insurance plan if they're still working at that point?
They could. It's almost best just to go on the Medicare because
Hmm.
I always joke that's the good stuff,
Hmm.
and you can get nice supplements to go with that. I don't work in the Medicare field anymore. I used to, but typically if somebody asks me, I say take the Medicare.
And I guess that's just part of the similar analysis that they would do. There's different Medicare options, and they figure out which Medicare option makes sense.
Correct. And I have partners for that as well.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And then just going back to the transition, let's say, good things for a company, they're growing. At what point is it, once they hit in the 30s that they start considering switching over, or do they have to switch over when they hit 50, or
Well,
i-
52. hmm
52, they do have to switch at 52?
hmm
Okay.
Where they get
And
penalized.
okay. And does it make, like, I'm looking at like from financially, when does it make sense to switch, or does it even make sense to just wait as long as possible before switching?
It really depends on the demographic that I'm talking to. But I always suggest we do a compare at least once a year. Don't just stay on something for 5 years because it's working for you, so you think, right? There
Hmm.
could be something else out there that's better that I could switch you to. Or we could start looking at the prices and compare. Hey, this is what you're paying right now. This is what it's going to go to. Does that make sense for you? I make suggestions, I show them what's available, but I really let the person decide, is this better for my pocketbook? Not because Sherry's saying do this, but is it good for you? Um, Really, when you get up into 40 employees, you want to consider it because if you hire, 10, 12 more people, you're going to have to do it. And you don't want to be
Right.
scrambling. So you might as well get ahead of the game. I'm a planner personally. So,
Hmm. Yeah, it's always a good thing.
yeah.
What do you see some of the, I don't know, call it trends, like, or legal things changing with health insurance? Like, you always hear these rumors, okay, they're taking coverage by this, or they're doing that, or any trends, challenges, legal things that business owners should be aware of that you might see coming down the pipeline.
Well, yeah, on maybe not, it depends. So on the marketplace side, Biden did the American Rescue Plan, which was great because it raised the income it takes to get a subsidy and made the subsidies bigger. Well, a lot of people don't know that that expires at the end of 2025. So people who are getting these huge discounts on the marketplace, they're not going to, most likely, it's not going to be renewed. So people's premiums are going to look
Premiums are
a
going to go
little
up.
bit different.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I'm preparing myself for people to be a little upset. But there are other options because maybe somebody only went to Marketplace because they were getting that big
Right.
discount, right? So I have options ready. But that's one legal thing that, and you could Google it. It's out there. So I'm just keeping an eye to see.
All right, Sherry, that's all the questions I have for you today. I want to thank you for joining me on an episode of The Agent of Wealth and sharing your expertise. We covered a lot, and I know it'll be valuable to our listeners. Before we go, how best can someone get in touch with you or learn more about what you do?
Yeah, so my cell phone is area code 417-763-0295. You can call or text me. My website is healthinsurancewithsherry@healthinsurancewithsherry.com. Excuse me. Sherry is spelled Sherri. Or you can email me at healthinsurancewithsherry@gmail.com.
Great. We'll include all the information in the resources section of
Thank
the
you.
show notes. Thanks again, Sherry, and
Thank
thank you to
you.
everyone who tuned in today. Don't forget to follow the Agent of Wealth on the platform you listen from and leave us a review of the show. We're currently accepting new clients, and if you'd like to schedule a one-on-one consultation with our advisors, please do so at bautisfinancial.com/call.
Thank you for listening to the Agent of Wealth podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered represents the views and opinions of the guests and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Bautis Financial. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended to be a substitute for professional financial planning and investment advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investments and financial planning.